Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode in our series of interviews with CTEL members called TEL Potager. Potager is a French term for a modest kitchen garden, or in some rural areas, it's also used as a term for a small warming oven. We're using it in this series of conversations as a metaphor for discussing some centre members' interests. The themes tend to be oriented toward TEL's role in nurturing and growth and relational understanding, hence the name TEL Potager. TEL, of course, is much more problematic, and I don't think we can begin tackling that in these conversations. So we'll navigate around that for now and see how we get on. So the series of TEL Potager is an initiative. It's very conversational. It's basic and stripped back. It's a talking heads format, pretty much what we can see here. No need whatsoever for a production budget. It's simply a conversation with a purpose where we learn a little bit more about some centre colleagues outside of those kind of pressurized work projects, time compressed conferences, and the events where we need to kind of get to the next thing. So we reject those tightly focused discussions of research, as enjoyable as those things always are, of course. Our guest today is an absolute joy for me personally. I'm so happy that she agreed to join us for a chat, and I'm sure anyone who's worked and learned and researched and socialized with her will be looking forward to this a great deal. In this episode of our series, we're lucky enough to be joined by Centre member Kathy Chandler. Hello, Kathy. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, Phil.
Kathy, I think it seems fair to say that you're perhaps still most renowned for research and practice in education for health and social care, but more recently, I've been really interested in research of things like professionalism and TEL and online teaching and micro credentialing, and there's this sort of growing portfolio of research in community and equity and TEL and things like that. So hopefully you'll be all right sharing some of these diverse experiences and plans and aspirations with us. There's loads that we could ask you about. Would you mind if we perhaps get going by asking a bit about your background in education, more generally, how you became interested in TEL specifically? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. My own education didn't involve a lot of technology, certainly not at school or university. Everything was handwritten on paper until I got to my final year of university and my dissertation. And then there were no personal computers or laptops in students' rooms those days. We had to go to a computer room, type up our work, save it on a floppy disk and print it out. So I'm really showing my age here, Phil. But I did have quite early access to a computer at home though, and it was a VIC-20. You're too
Yeah.
young to remember them,
I had a
probably.
VIC-20 actually.
You had a VIC-20.
Yeah, some of my more affluent friends had Commodore 64s, and I had a second-hand
Yeah.
VIC-20, which was just about running on Steam, I think.
So there was that little cassette player where you had to load your program that you wanted to use, and yeah. So I had access to one of those, and I used to do a bit with that. But then my first career was working in the NHS, and everything was very much paper based there too. I can remember in 1994, one of my nursing colleagues coming into work and saying, I've discovered this amazing thing, Kathy. It's called the internet.
Yeah.
And around that time, I went to work abroad for a while. And even when I came back 4 years later, in the NHS, we had some computerized records, but we still didn't have internet access, and any learning or professional development that happened really didn't involve a lot of technology. So my interest in TEL came about when I discovered online distance education, and I did a master's degree part-time at a distance, and then I became an online distance educator, teaching health and social care. And gradually that remote learning and teaching involved more and more technology to bring people together. So initially that was asynchronous platforms, and then later on synchronous platforms. And I remember when synchronous tuition was introduced on one of the modules that I worked on as a tutor. And one of the academics, the manager, said to us, "I hope you're not going to use those awful breakout rooms with any of our students." And that really sparked my curiosity. You know, I was thinking, why not?
Yeah.
Why had this person had such awful experience? And what skills do educators need to make synchronous online tuition a more positive experience? And that started a whole scholarship journey for me, which eventually led to my doctoral research into synchronous online tuition.
Well, that's great. Thanks for that. I mean, I remember in undergraduate OU studies, we used to do a lot when we were on deployment, and you'd kind of, you'd post a response and come back a day later and see if anybody had replied. So it was great at the time. It shows how far we've come in such a short time. I mean, in terms of your own sort of, I know everyone's using the word journey these days, but you truly have been on a journey that, in terms of your own journey and it kind of shaping your ideas of what technology enhanced learning is, what it does, how technology has consequences for work and learning, whether your own or people you sort of helping. Do you have any I suppose any kind of conceptions about what technology enhanced learning is, what it does, if you got any particular projects in the planning pipeline that are ongoing? Is there any recent or emerging research you can share with us? That's a typically rambling question from me. Hopefully you can pick whichever one you want to answer. I suppose it's kind of about if you got anything in the pipeline that you could share.
Okay, so recently I've been researching doctoral researchers' WhatsApp communities and their impact on learning and professional development and well-being. And that came about because I joined a peer-led WhatsApp group as a new doctoral researcher, and that's a group that I'm still part of today, and I found it really helpful, but unexpectedly really helpful.
Mm.
And I realised that nobody has done any research in this area, looking specifically at doctoral researcher WhatsApp groups, but of course there's lots of them. But it's quite a tricky area to research ethically, because if we said to postgraduate researchers, come and join this this WhatsApp group, we're going to use your posts for research purposes,
Yeah.
then nobody would join. And if we asked permission retrospectively, that wouldn't be fair either, because people share the details of their lives and they don't have research in mind. So I decided that the only way to do this research project and look at one of these communities ethically would be to do an autoethnographic study of my own contributions to the group that I've been part of, with the permissions of the other members of the group, and just using their posts insofar as they provide some context for me to analyse my own posts.
Mm.
And you can probably imagine, getting the ethical approval to do that wasn't straightforward. Lots of issues around using data that was gathered on a external non-university platform and then
Mm.
storing it on university platforms and all the permissions and so on. But I had a lot of help from the relevant ethics committee, and I've been able to do that study. And it's been fascinating, really. What I've found is that a WhatsApp group can play a really significant and positive role in fostering community for doctoral researchers. And for me, it really brought about a sense of belonging, but it was also a backstage community where I could share my feelings honestly, and it was sort of away from the eyes of program leaders and supervisors and so on, and I could get lots of reassurance that other people were struggling with similar things. And in that community, it was very easy to seek advice about research, and it was also quite a low stakes environment where I could learn how to offer advice to other researchers. So that really contributed to my professional development as a doctoral supervisor. So yeah, it's been a really interesting study for me, because it's changed how I view WhatsApp groups. Previously I would have said to students, be a bit careful about
Yeah.
WhatsApp groups, because you know they're very good at spreading misinformation. Somebody gets the wrong end of the stick and they pass that information on. And if somebody has a negative experience, if there's any bullying that happens, it's difficult for the university to do anything about that. It's because it's not a university platform. But now, I would say I think quite differently in the context of postgraduate study anyway. I sort of see WhatsApp not just as a space, but I see it as a really valued tool, and it's a tool with agency, and it's like an extension of me that allows me to connect and learn from my peers in a way that I couldn't do as a distance learner and researcher otherwise.
Yeah, that's fascinating actually. I like the focus on community and belonging and kind of upending notions of impact. They're kind of counter to um the sort of instrumentalist conceptions of TEL. I have to say I thoroughly enjoyed some work you did on um, micro-credentialing and those kind of outcomes beyond gaining a qualification or a badge or a statement of performance or something like that. And it sounds like that's maybe a common theme running through your work, is that, community and belonging stuff, the findings about, gaining confidence and questioning what learning is and how technology can do it. That in a really healthy way, I suppose. Where sometimes technology is waved around as having market advantages or something like that, whereas actually there's a whole other side to it. I mean, I don't want to embarrass you, but I do feel the need to say to anyone watching or listening to this, if I if you want a really interesting read about what learners think themselves about things like micro-credentialing, or actually if you just wanted a really decent example of empirically examining this elusive thing that we call impact, then it's worth going to the paper Kathy wrote with, Kathy can test me now, the paper that was written with Leanne Perryman in, I think,
Mm.
2023. And I think it's called something like People Have Started Calling Me an Expert, the Impact of OU Micro-Credentialing or something like that. And I have to say, I thoroughly enjoy that focus you take on community and belonging. I'd recommend it to anyone. Hopefully I haven't embarrassed you too much, but
No, not at all.
they are great. It's great to see that focus, to be honest. The next question is it's one that we ask everyone in the series, and it seems a little bit abstract at first, I suppose. But if you had, your own TEL Potager, if you had a separate TEL kitchen garden or a warming oven where you could sort of privately grow or nurture or incubate something related to TEL, what would that be, do you think?
I don't know about privately, because I think, the thing that I'd like to grow is something that all educators should be thinking about very publicly, actually.
Yeah,
But I'd like to grow the idea that all learning, including technology enhanced learning, should be about caring.
yeah,
In TEL, we talk a lot about the cognitive and social aspects of learning, but we don't do a lot of thinking about the emotional aspects. And yet, if we were to ask students to tell us about their most memorable learning experiences, whether they were absolutely transformative or completely awful, they would tell us about how those experiences made them feel, whether they were equitable and inclusive, whether their contributions were valued, whether the teachers were friendly and helpful and kind, whether they felt part of a community. We're coming back to community again, aren't we? And,
yeah.
and those are the things I think that really make a difference to how we learn online. And as online educators, we can make a difference not only through what we do, the actions that we take, but by being the sort of teachers that make learners feel welcome and comfortable in online spaces. So that's something that I like to grow, both in myself and in TEL teaching and research.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Actually, it's important, isn't it? Yeah. And I know you sort of walk the walk as well as talk the talk. I remembered reading on one of your bios, I think it might have been the Lancaster Pure one or something like that. It was something profound. I think it was something like the development of community trust and belonging can't be taken for granted in online context, but must be generated. I think it was something like that. And I know, alongside that and your prior experiences as a practitioner and as a researcher and what you've seen of TEL, um, it's completely obvious that you do focus on that community and belonging in your research. So I suppose thanks for all that you're doing to bring the rest of us along on the journey with you. Is there anything that you think, either related to that or something else? Is there anything that you think we're not discussing enough when it comes to technology enhanced learning?
Yeah, I think a big elephant in the room is the climate crisis.
Mm,
I don't think we're discussing environmental and social justice enough. We tend to think that TEL is always a good thing in that regard because we can reach students all over the world that might not have accessed education otherwise, and they don't have to travel, and that's true. But there's all these hidden costs with technology in terms of the raw materials, the precious metals that go into our phones and computers,
yeah.
um, and that considerable, not just environmental cost, but human cost as well. So the energy that we require to run our massive data centers and what people are doing to have to provide the learning that we're sort of taking for granted. So we're using more and more gadgets and energy every year, and we can't carry on doing that indefinitely. So I think we need to stop and think about what to prioritize in our use of technology.
Yeah, I think you're completely correct. I'd agree with you there, actually. Yeah, you can't win, you can't break even, you can't get out of the game. We need to confront that, don't we? And just say, like, we can't just keep this relentless demand for technology. I read somewhere the other day, I think, I didn't particularly drill into the detail, but it was just food for thought. I think it was something like a, an average prompt on any of the top three large language models takes about 20 times the carbon footprint of an equivalent on Google. And then it's not as if Google is benign, because there are material implications for that. There's a server bank which needs to be cooled, which had embodied carbon in building it, which has operational carbon in sustaining it. Just because we can't see this stuff, it doesn't mean it's not having real world implications. I do think as well we do sometimes need to sometimes separate this sort of Januszian relationship we have as scholars and researchers and as practitioners. We sometimes need to hold that mirror up, don't we, and say, look, well, we can't just decide that we're an advanced TEL practitioner over here and a TEL scholar over here. We sometimes have to smash the two together and say we need to be part of the solution, not part of the problem, eh?
Mm.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That thanks very much. Um, Believe it or not, the time's flying by on us here. We've got just a few minutes remaining, and I'd like to get something else from you while we've got some uninterrupted time together. I wonder if I could ask you something. It could be related to, community and belonging or micro credentialing or health and social care or something else entirely. If you had no practical constraints of money, time, distance, expertise, everything was unlimited, what would you like to see with regard to technology enhanced learning? So, you can make any wish, wave a magic wand, clap your hands and see some change. What would you do, Kathy?
What would I do? I think I'm going to have a really very big wish with my magic wand, Phil.
Yeah,
I think and this is totally impractical, but
it's your
if I
wish.
could, it's my wish. So I would make it impossible for technology to do anything harmful or unethical or unjust.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
So if I could have my wish, then we could use generative AI, to use your example, to support learning for, for people, but there would be no environmental cost in terms of energy use, and we could magically remove the need for poorly paid workers to be sifting out the harmful content. And yeah, my wish would be that we could do that in relation to all technology, not just technology for learning, but technology in general, that we could somehow make it possible to only use it for good, not for anything harmful or unjust.
Yeah, we sometimes circle back to this sort of, it's an old device, but Kranzberg's first law, which is technology is neither good nor bad nor neutral. It's kind of how humanity wields it. But I get the sense you'd want it built in from the start rather than having a big red button that says good, not bad. You'd actually have it designed in right from ground level.
Yeah, as I say, it's not possible, but you did give me a magic wand,
I
so
did, yeah. No, it's
it'd be
certainly
nice if
great.
it was.
Yeah, it would be. That's been a real joy for me, Kathy. It's been super to chat with you, and hopefully the centre members and many others, I'm sure, will enjoy getting to know you a little more through this without the pressures and constraints of the other activities that we get involved in. Thanks for giving up your time and capacity. It's really appreciated, and particularly for sharing those, poignant and important reflections of thoughts and ideas and how you came to be involved in TEL from those early days of handwriting on paper and the well-being and research of WhatsApp, the countering the instrumentalist conceptions of TEL and reminding us that, we are all embroiled in the climate crisis. It's not something happening to people over there or just happening to people over there. It's, it's for us to deal with too. Centre's certainly richer for your membership, and I hope you won't mind me saying that Centre members and others watching can reach out to you through Centre channels and extend the conversations. Wasn't that brilliant, everyone? As a CTEL community, we got to know a little bit more about Kathy and her TEL Potager and some bonus knowledge about how TEL relates to Kathy's broader experiences and concerns for us. Remember to let us know if you've got any particular questions or ideas or suggestions for the TEL Potager series. If there's anyone you'd like to be interviewed, including yourselves, if you'd like to step up and volunteer, then drop us a line if there's something interesting growing or warming up nicely in your own potager. Don't forget to subscribe to the CTEL channel in that top right corner if you're watching on YouTube. And we'll see you next time on TEL Potager. Thanks again, Kathy. Thanks, everyone. See you all soon. Cheerio.
Thanks, Phil. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much.